Good morning. I'm Stephanie Robinson, the chairman of the South Carolina Disabilities and Special Needs Commission. I am calling this commission meeting to order. Today is October the 21st. It is 10:04. I apologize. We were all running a little late with traffic delays today, but we did make it, so that's a positive today. Commissioner Blackwood, would you mind reading the notice of meeting, please?
A meeting notice announcing the date, time, and place of the October 21st, 2021 commission meeting was distributed October 20th, 2021 to appropriate media and other groups or individuals who have requested notification. The announcement and agenda were posted at the Department of Disabilities and Special Needs Central Administrative Office and on the website. Americans with Disabilities Act. The public has been notified that accommodations such as interpreters, mobility assistance, or other assistance will be provided to individuals with disabilities and special needs if requested in advance.
Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. All right, we now need to I just want to welcome you all here today. Walking downstairs? No? Okay, good. I just want to let you all know, now that COVID has settled down some, I think we're going to open our meetings back up starting next month so that the members can, visitors can actually come into the room with us and watch the meeting starting next month. Now, if they prefer, we will have the option for them to sit downstairs, but now that COVID has kind of settled, we feel comfortable in bringing them back. So we're going to go ahead and move forward with doing that next month. Let's look at the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as read, or are there amendments to the agenda?
I move to adopt the agenda.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second to approve the agenda? We have a second. All right, all in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Hearing none, ayes carry. The motion is adopted. The agenda is going to be used as adopted as written. Invocation, Commissioner Thomas, would you carry the?
Thank you. Let's bow. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to serve. Thank you for the wonderful staff. Thank you for the great things that you have done for us. We do pray for our nation and ask your guidance on our thoughts. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Okay. The approval of the minutes from the September 15th, 2021 Special Call Commission meeting, the September 16th Commission meeting, the October 7th, 2021 Special Call Commission meeting have all been sent to the commissioners and distributed to those involved, and want to just make certain that there are no changes or amendments to those minutes.
I have one small change. I usually do. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It would be the one that we did for the commission training,
Okay.
which is September 15th, and it should simply say that that under where it says a personnel committee is a standing committee that meets on a regular basis. It should say that the policy committee is considering a change to that committee, which is what I said. So, and I'll talk more about that whenever I get to that point. But you should say that we were considering a change.
Okay.
To that procedure.
Do we have that amendment? Okay. Pending that amendment, are there any other changes? Amendments? Hearing none, do we accept the minutes with that change? Do I have a motion?
I have a motion to do all minutes at the same time.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries and the minutes are approved with that one change. Okay. Commissioners update. We'll start with Commissioner Miller. I think you went and visited some.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Orangeburg, South Carolina.
Okay.
And Commissioner Blackwood and I visited the center there and visited many of the sites. And we had a wonderful time. We learned a lot, and it was very, very interesting. And I would highly recommend that we do this more often because those out there in the outlying areas, they need to see us, we need to see them so that we can further move the disabilities and special need causes.
Very good. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Commissioner,
Malphurs.
Sorry. Do you have any updates?
Not this month, thank you.
I was just going to thank Orangeburg DDSN Board and Executive Director for hosting Mr. Miller and I. We had a great time, so learned a lot and appreciate being a part and listening in on their board meeting as well. So
Good.
that's all I have, I think.
Mr. Thomas? Nothing? Cohort? Mel?
I know y'all are probably sick of hearing me brag on it, but I'm going to keep on doing it because it's been so wonderful. We've had the first couple of games played, the weekend games at Miracle Park in York County in Rock Hill. The number of volunteers that have come out to be trained to serve as participants in those programs has been overwhelming from the community. The support has just been tremendous. The turnout at the actual games themselves has been fantastic. It has been a huge opening success. We had one of the local news agencies did put together a really nice clip on the opening. And so I asked staff if we could play that. And hopefully.
The meeting is broadcasting because I'm seeing messages that it's not,
So I was getting messages too, so
Okay.
he just went out and he's working on it. I don't think that it's being broadcast yet.
Okay, so I don't know if we have to stop or
But-
not.
Can I have a motion to take a brief break until you're sure that it is? Second?
Second.
We're going to take a brief break to make sure that we are being broadcast.
And if we need to catch up time, I can forego the playing of that video. It was
No,
just
we're
sort of
fine.
a
I'd like to
feel-good
see it. I
moment.
think
It was
it's
a feel-good moment. I thought they did a really nice job putting it together, so it was one of those.
We need those minutes.
Yes.
Chairman, on Gary's event, I was so intrigued by what his presentation was a month ago. I don't know,
I
kind
sent
of.
Ken out immediately because I started getting text messages, but now people are messaging in the chat.
Okay.
I'm kind of losing track, but I hope that your group that we're talking about here, there in Rock Hill, is kind of letting everybody know what they're doing, because it sounded so good. I thought, wow, if we could emulate, in other places, but I think the only way to do it is if they kind of come up and visit while some of this stuff is going on.
Yeah, no, I think the word is getting out, certainly amongst the Miracle League participants, which is a nationwide program that the park is open and running. And the staff there is promoting it pretty heavily on social media.
Okay.
So I hope the word is getting out.
I hate to make promises about what I would or would not do, but if I had a free day, that'd be a great thing to drive up and coming up 85 toward Charlotte is a mess now, but that's, boy.
But particularly if you get there on one of the game days when they have the organized Miracle.
That's what I'm
game,
talking, yeah.
That's really the time to be there to see everything in action.
I hate to keep us waiting, but I thought this is.
So a lot of people are commenting in the meeting. Would you like me to just say that we've suspended the commission meeting until
Yes,
then?
say that we've temporarily put we've called suspension until we get the audio.
Resolved.
Hopefully we get that done.
We will, but if we don't, we're not required to record it, remember? So,
Or broadcast it live. We can still record it. Can we still record it?
I mean, we're not required to broadcast live or record it, we can still record it though.
It says we're recording. It's great.
Yeah, that's what I was noticing.
Maybe we're recording, we don't know. We have a spy downstairs to see.
This is, you got him on text, right? I can probably join the,
Media.
There was a. Yes, it's being recorded.
Okay. We haven't gotten the okay from him to start yet.
there's nothing being broadcast, like I can,
Um,
when I see it, it's,
Well, then they need to cut, if it's being recorded now, they need to cut this part out.
I guess they'll go back in and edit it before they post it to YouTube.
Michelle, you might make a note asking to make sure they do that, because otherwise they might forget. Ms. Fry, I'm sorry. Dr. Fry, you say, I'm sorry. I apologize. We're used to using everybody else's first name. David, I should say we're happy to have you back in person. I don't think you were here last month.
Was I not? I can't remember.
Not for the official meeting.
Everything's been a blur.
I don't think so. If I'm not mistaken.
I should look.
No, you were present. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, like I say, everything's been a blur.
One
know,
of
it
them, he
just-
wasn't here for it. Working and he wasn't able to.
Oh, yeah, there was, I mean,
It was a special,
It was one of the special call meetings. You're right. I'm sorry. That's what I was getting at, but I'm sorry. I didn't. Anyway, it's nice to see you again in person. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
As it is with each of us.
Sounded a little bit like Elvis Presley just now.
Thank you very much.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, sir. I consider that a compliment. Nice fellow. I mean, good fellow as far as I know. If we get to about 10:30, and then if not, we'd go ahead and do it without, just post it later. I was thinking. And just don't, I wouldn't post part of it either. I would just record it all and just say we're recording it all, you know what I mean? Don't start posting it now. I mean, 30 minutes, I mean, an hour in. I would just say we're recording it
I
all.
hate that too.
I don't like it either, but it's life whenever these things happen.
It's kind of odd.
It is odd that it would be recording, but not to me, but I don't know how
but
this
not
stuff works.
broadcasting. So is it a Wi-Fi thing, maybe?
So my understanding is if you were invited to the meeting, you can see and hear the meeting, but the broadcast, which is where they kind of lock down, you know, you can't talk,
Yeah.
they mute everybody, that's what people can't see. So I don't really know.
Can they hear it?
No.
Okay. So you're here.
They're not seeing anything.
Would that include providers, or the providers, do they get an invite, like you said?
They just see it on the website on the broadcast. So,
Well, I mean, it's recorded, it can be put up tomorrow. I mean, nothing will change between today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is also, I shouldn't say. I will, however, say on a positive note, our above our chairman and new executive director is a wonderful,
State seal.
state seal that does not have coronavirus like the one before.
That's right.
This one's the one that's healthy.
it does look.
It looks so much better. Michelle, did you notice in past meetings the way that looked?
Probably not, too
I
probably
did not.
Well, I guarantee you I did.
Of course you
From
did.
the moment I came in here the first time.
Yes.
It looked like it had coronavirus.
Before coronavirus was around.
That's right. They caught coronavirus up there and we had to.
I think we got information.
Everything's good. Yeah, it was just the wrong link was posted on the website.
Okay,
So we've told everybody who was on the wrong meeting to refresh and go back in.
okay. Well, we're glad to have everyone back joining us live. We hope that if you have any questions, go back to the website and the new link is posted there. All right, I'm going to call us back to order, and we will pick back up where we were. I believe we were at Commissioner Lamel, who was telling us about the Miracle Park, giving his update.
Correct.
And I believe he said y'all have a video to play for us. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There we go.
Just a moment.
Technology is wonderful when it works.
There are miracles happening in Rock Hill. The city's newest park, fittingly called Miracle Park, debuted today. We got to look inside to experience the all-inclusive playground.
It's been a wonderful, uplifting day, and today has been what I think we all agree, a miracle.
They had a heart for people like us.
It's awesome.
And I think today we're able to stand out here and celebrate the park for all people, because you don't come to this park and play just if you have special needs. This park is for all, but for once, there's a park that truly is for all.
This park is designed around the principles of universal design. Universal design is for designing for people of all abilities. It's designing for inclusivity and allowing people to experience the park with zero barriers. The park has no stairs throughout the park. The walkways are all level. It provides for kind of accessibility to the next level.
It's just great for kids in wheelchairs.
Allows for people to, regardless of their physical ability, to have various options around the park.
From the people of Rock Hill working together, that's our story as a community.
The park is about being able to enjoy it, what your ability is. And so to see these kids out here playing today, and to see the adults out here playing and experiencing this is just really special. And you start seeing it all come together here, and it's just part of this community is what makes it special, and the people are what make it special, and the park is really celebrating that. And everyone's different, nobody's the same.
So we're on to phase 2. This is just the beginning of this.
That's great.
Yeah,
So-
so we're very happy with how it's.
Phase 2, what will phase 2 of this?
So they have an entire they've used roughly half of the acreage. There are things like a accessible golf area for essentially putting and chipping. There is a catch and release pond planned. There is, the Panthers are hopefully going to be sponsoring this, a variable obstacle course that basically a challenge course for all different activities, some additional fields.
Okay.
So it's phase 2. They're in the process of basically putting together the funding for it right now, but it's going well so far.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner Mel.
Thank you.
And thank you, IT, for putting that together for us. Well, in my update, I just want to thank and welcome our new director, Dr. Michelle Fry. Michelle has had an interesting 2 weeks, I think. She's learned a lot about DDSN, and we encourage you to invite her to come to your commission meetings and your county board meetings, and invite her to your events so that she can get to know you and your constituents and those you serve as well out in the community. And I invite the commissioners to invite her to go with you to your county meetings and let her get to know your community as well. Okay. So that is my update. It is National Disability Employee Awareness Month. We're excited about this, and I'm going to invite Rufus Britt to come up and give a presentation. I know the governor made a proclamation on this. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to invite Becky Peters, and Susan Davis is online, who's going to join us. These are two subject matter experts in the house that support employment services and providers that deliver employment services. So to echo Commissioner Rawlinson's point, I want to thank Governor McMaster for recognizing the contributions of people with disabilities by recognizing October as Employment Awareness Month. It's really, during the public health emergency, I think we all can realize the importance of a reliable labor force, workforce. And people with disabilities are filling a huge void right now. So I'm going to turn it over to Becky and Susan to talk about all the contributions that we made as an agency, as a system, to support people with disabilities.
Absolutely. Susan on the phone.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning. I am just delighted to be able to speak a few minutes about all the positive initiatives that DDSN has done to enable individuals in our state to work and be a part of life. And just to bring you up to date, in 2015, DDSN was the very first state agency to establish an employment first directive, and that's been reviewed actually somewhat recently by the team and commissioner that reviews directives, and that's 707. And basically what that directive does in a nutshell is it embraces individual integrated employment at or above minimum wage as the preferred outcome for working age adults. And one of the reasons, and there's many reasons, as you know, why employment is so important, but one of the reasons that we see in the lives of those we support and in our own lives is it gives us an avenue to contribute, a sense of purpose and belonging. When Becky and I, my counterpart for the Director of Day Services, and I do trainings, one of the questions we often ask people is to think about their 3 closest friends. And when people think about their 3 closest friends, we often ask, how many of them did you meet through work? And generally about half of the group will raise their hand and express that one of their closest friends they met through their employment. So we realize that that also gives those that we support an opportunity to make lasting relationships. And obviously it offers tangible financial gains, which afford more and more opportunities for them to participate in life. Currently, we have, for some of our initiatives, we are partnering with the South Carolina Vocational Rehab Department. We've been in meetings with them regularly to strengthen collaborative efforts. Our goal is obviously to develop a well-oiled machine and strategies to increase employment outcomes for those with disabilities from both of our agencies. Vocational Rehab, as you probably already know, is the state designated unit, which means their priority is to find individuals with disabilities employment. And so by partnering with them, it's certainly our hope and goal that those opportunities would increase for those that we support. We also have case managers have increased referrals to that agency. And even during COVID, they have referred at least 137 individuals in the past year. So we're continuing to see that increase.
And a couple more initiatives that we have. We're very excited to have our DDSN post-secondary transition team also focusing on making referrals for employment to South Carolina Vocational Rehab. With that goal also being increasing the number of students exiting school with jobs. So that's been really exciting. And I've had the wonderful opportunity, honestly, of participating in some retailoring of the day service career preparation. In moving forward, we are going to further expand and enhance our pre-employment activities and training in the day programs with the anticipated outcomes of more individuals securing employment in our state. So that's been really, really a great thing going on. We have a small surprise for you guys too. I'll be handing out everybody an employment newsletter that was put together. So we have highlighted an individual in each of your districts that has a successful employment story. So it's been really fun getting these stories together and being able to put this together for each of you to see the successes that we're having across the state. So enjoy. Sure.
And in concluding, we want to highlight the, we're practicing what we preach. We've been successful in working with agencies in our network who provide employment services to actually provide real employment opportunities to individuals that we support. So at our regional centers, in our food services and housekeeping departments, we partner with agencies and been successful in actually hiring multiple individuals that are served by our agency, making above minimum wage. So that's a real accomplishment. And again, a testament to our commitment to employment. Before we close, we'd like to recognize the contributions of someone in our finance department who has been working with the agency for more than 30 years. Tommy, would you come up? And so when we talk about contributions and people that really are committed to the mission, Tommy exemplifies that. Tommy is faithful. He shows up to work every day. And when he comes into your office, you know, other than making sure that you're awake and attentive to your duties, he's going to make you smile. Even when the Gamecocks have a bad weekend, Tommy still has a good attitude and a great work ethic. So we like to recognize Tommy, you know, as an important contributor in our agency, and also for really dispelling a lot of myths and showing what people with many abilities can do. So Tommy, thank you for your service to the state, and we'd like to present this award, and it's signed by the governor, recognizing your contributions to state government. Thank you, Tommy. Anything you want to say to the commissioner?
I mean, why don't you come here and let's get a photo, if that would be okay. Rufus, you and Pat want to come up here?
Sure.
And Michelle?
Yeah. I tell you, I got this Clemson hat I want to put on.
I got on my arm. I'm just speaking.
Oh, Tommy.
Smile.
Dude.
Very nice.
Congratulations. We appreciate everything. Anything else from Rufus? Is that all? All right. We are moving on. Do we have any public input? No public input today. All right. Commissioner Blackwood and I had an informational meeting just to find out a little bit about disability rights in South Carolina about a month ago, I believe. We just kind of wanted to get some background and some learning, and we found out a lot of information. It was very helpful information for us to be able to gain an understanding of what disability rights in South Carolina does. We felt like it was something that the entire commission needs to be aware of. So we invited Beth Franco and her group to come and give us a little presentation, 15 minutes or so, about what disability rights in South Carolina is and what they do for the state and for the citizens that we serve. So if you will give your attention to Beth, and she's going to tell us a little bit about this.
I sent a PowerPoint. I don't know.
Yeah, it should be
Can get that up. First of all, just want to say good morning to the commissioners. Thank you for inviting me, and welcome, Director Fry. I look forward to the opportunity to sit down and talk with you and meet with you. I know you're still getting used to everything and meeting a lot of people, but we hope we have a chance to meet with you soon. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to come and speak with you all today about disability rights in South Carolina. And who we are and what we do. So, yeah.
I don't know if there's a,
Clicker.
okay. So our mission is to protect and advocate for the legal, civil, and human rights for people with disabilities here in South Carolina. We do that by, we have multiple services, but let me talk a little bit about who we are. You know, we are federally mandated to do this work. We are the Protection and Advocacy Organization for South Carolina. There are 57 PNAs across the country. Every state has a PNA. Every territory and district has a PNA. And our purpose is to basically to protect and to defend the rights of individuals with disabilities here in South Carolina. Next. So, you know, we have our work is primarily funded through federal grants. We also have some contracts with the state to do other work, but primarily we're funded through federal grants to do this work. We are a nonprofit organization. Most PNAs across the country are. We are not associated with a state agency. We are independent. And our work is really centered, we work, well, I will talk a little bit about the services in a moment. But that is, I think it's very important to stress that we have the independence in our work to do the work that we need to do to advocate for individuals here in South Carolina. Next. So let me talk a little bit about the services that we provide. One of the most important things we try to do is we try to create good self-advocates in South Carolina. You know, people want to understand and be educated about what their rights are and how they can advocate for their rights. And many times we'll get calls, we have an information or referral team, and they take calls that come in. And many times it's just, they don't really know what their rights are. They don't really understand how to advocate. And we spend a lot of time working with individuals to share resources and to teach them how to be good advocates. So we provide information and referral. We if there are times when a client comes to us and they've exhausted every way that they can advocate, they're not being successful, we do provide legal representation in those situations.
You got lawyers that work under you?
I do.
I presume part of that would be ADA issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me interrupting. Go
No,
ahead.
no, no. Any questions you have, please let me know. So we do the information and referral. We do provide legal representation. We also provide a lot of education for the public in general and stakeholders and policymakers. And what we're learning as we do more of that work is how much more work we need to do in that area to educate people about disability law, about the ADA, because people don't really understand that. People don't even really understand what disability means under ADA. So there's a lot of educating that we do in our work. And we also do a lot of work around public policy. We meet with lawmakers because we want to make sure that they're educated. You know, we work with other advocacy agencies in supporting bills that are going to support people with disabilities here in South Carolina. So we work very closely with a lot of advocacy agencies to do that. And then, you know, the other thing that we do a lot of, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, is monitoring and investigation. That is a big part of what PNAs do across the country. That is really the foundation of why PNAs were started. And that was to make sure that individuals with disabilities who are being served by facilities or day programs are protected from abuse and exploitation and neglect. And that's a big part of our work. Next slide, please. I want to talk a little bit about eligibility for our services. First of all, we do not, unlike legal aid, it is not based on income. Anyone who calls us can be served by our organization. We do not base our services, and we have no programs where we base our services on income. But we do serve the person with a disability. That is who our client is. It's not a facility, it's not a provider, it's really not a family member. Our client is the person with the disability. And so I think that's something that sometimes is unclear to people, that who, is really who our client is. So, that is really what makes you eligible. If you're an individual with a disability and you contact us, and we do not base it on income, and we will go through a process to determine if how we can help you. Next.
Quick example of something of a regular type of call that you deal with.
Type of call we deal with. We get so many types of calls. We may get a call from somebody, for example, who is living in an apartment complex and they have a service animal, and their landlord's telling them they have to leave because they can't have animals in this particular apartment building. And they'll call us, and then we will, most of the time, what we'll do is we'll just send a letter out to the landlord, and share with them, how this person is protected under ADA to have a service animal, and send them information about service animals. And a lot of times, something like that, just a letter resolves that. So that's one example. Another example may be a student, family calls about their child who's a student in special education who's having a lot of behavioral issues and having problems in the school, and they want to suspend the child. We'll get involved with that, and we educate the parents on asking for an assessment and behavioral intervention plan for that child. So there's a lot of different calls. We get calls from facilities. We may get calls from outside people who have, may be reporting a situation where there may have been abuse or neglect in a facility, and we will open up an investigation. So it's very broad as far as the work we do. But I wanted to talk a little bit about our service areas, you brought in a great question. What kind of work do we do? Well, we do work in employment. We have the CAP program. So if we have an individual with a disability who's maybe not able to get services from the Commission for the Blind or from VR and feels they deserve to get those services, they can call us. Or they're not getting timely services, or there's some other issue, we will work with them and VR and Commission for the Blind to resolve that. We do education services like we spoke, and that's a very broad. I mean, that can be IDEA, that can be the 504. We even work with students who are in college. So post-secondary, your post-secondary students who are maybe struggling with their coursework in college because of their disability, and we will work with them to make sure that they get modifications. We work on housing issues. So, like I said, the service animal is one example. There may be other accommodations that can be made in a person's living arrangement so that they can stay in their apartment or their home, and they're requesting services and being denied. We'll work with them on that. We work with, I'm just trying to think, there's so many different things that we do. We do work with beneficiaries of Social Security who want to go back to work, but they're not sure how that affects, their benefits with SSI, SSDI, or they've been sent a letter that they owe this money back to Social Security, and we'll work with them on that type of thing. We work with people on voting. Voting access is a big priority for us.
and making sure that there's physical access, but also making sure that there are other options and ways for people to vote who may not be able to physically get to a place to vote. So we work on voting issues. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you on number 2 now, or have you gone to number 2?
I'm on to number 2, but you have a question?
I had a question if you're still on number 2.
No, you could go back to.
Okay, if you would, the monitoring and investigations things, I think really interesting from our perspective.
Well, and we're going to talk about that. That's why I've invited Anna Maria Connor. She's
Okay.
our senior attorney.
We've kind of been working on that, so that you, maybe we could figure out a way to do some segue on training of some of the staff out in the world who have oversight of individuals. And Barry's committee, as a matter of fact, policy committee, that's kind of gone up his bailiwick also. But I'm very interested in, just the hands-on, in the weeds, out in the world, where directors have oversight of 150 people or 200 people. They've got a staff. And then the question is staff doing the right thing by way of how to handle difficult situations? So this is the training part of the issue.
Yes, and we are going to spend some time on that, because I think that is probably the most important part for this group to hear about.
While at the same time, we've got staff shortages. I mean, we're having trouble, right, Rufus? Where'd Rufus go? I mean, so this is a hard world we find ourselves in. It really is. I was looking at one state. Do you mind if I go off on a quick little tangent? I was looking at one state just recently that came under some federal scrutiny, and they had assured, as part of the scrutiny from the feds, they started looking at their control and running of their own facilities, and maybe started to cut back, but they assured the federal government they weren't going to cut back. And lo and behold, years later, they basically did away, in other words, rather than be under the scrutiny, the federal just did away with the program, and I guess firmed it out to private. But I'm not sure delegation settles the issue of how people are being treated. And I've just been thinking a lot about this, so I'm so happy to actually get to know what you all do.
Well, and we're going to talk about that, because, kind of the 3 tenets of the work that we do really are, one is basically making sure that people who are in facilities and served by day programs are protected.
Right.
Community integration, and that basically is doing what we can do and advocating for what needs to be put in place in the community, so people have a choice to live in the community if they want. And then the third one deals with legal rights, and that's your access to, whether it's education, employment, being in the community. I mean, I was listening in on the news feed about the playground. Well, that's great. That's the type of thing that deals with access, but there's so much more. And so those are the 3 tenets of the work that we do as disability rights. But I really wanted to spend some time with this group today to talk about monitoring and investigation, because we have a team that does that. And I've invited Anna Maria Connor, who is our senior attorney and who oversees the monitoring and investigation team, to come up and talk with you a little bit about what our team does and how we're able to do that, which is through access authority and what that means. And then to answer any questions or to have some discussion with you on how we can work together on this issue. Okay, so Anna Maria.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks for having us. I'll get right to the point. If you want to go to the next slide, since the next one, sorry. Keep on going to monitoring investigations. Our access authority, as Beth mentioned, we can do monitoring, we can do investigations. And so what we're going to do is quickly go through where that authority came from and what it looks like. And then hopefully we'll have some more questions and we can give you some more information later. If you go to the next slide, what is our access authority? Well, basically it's created from the very first law that came about. It was about people with developmental disabilities, in order to address the abuse and neglect for those individuals who had been segregated and warehoused in these big facilities for decades, and just horrible things were happening. So that very first law came out from Congress, and it said, if you are going to take money to serve these people, you're going to have a P&A. And that P&A is going to have to be independent. You can house it where you want to. The governor gets to decide where it lives. But basically, you've got to have it. They've got to be able to go in independently and make sure that you guys are doing a good job with our money and with your tax dollars. Okay, so that's where access authority comes from. And it says basically that the P&A can have reasonable access to check on the people with disabilities, our clients, at any time. So go to the next slide. And if I'm going a little bit too fast, let me know, because I'm kind of excited to be here. It's been a while since I've been out in public too. And I'm a little bit joyous and nervous all at the same time. But this is our access authority. This is kind of the simplistic view, and this is the way I put it for today's thing. But this comes from the federal DD law. And I'll tell you right now that that federal law sets the standard for every other law that came afterwards. Our authority for people with mental illness, our authority for people with traumatic brain injury, and all of the other funding streams, they follow the DD one because it was the first.
I'm sorry, what's DD? I've lost. DD?
DD1, what is that?
DD1, what acronym? I'm sure it's been referred, and I didn't.
I'm talking about developmental disabilities, and I'm talking about if we go to the next slide, you'll actually see I've given you, and I'm sorry, one more. One of them, I actually put you, there is actually a site.
Okay.
Where you can look up the law itself.
Good.
I didn't give you the site to the regulations, but this is the.
Could you do that? Could you forward that to us?
I can forward that to you, yeah.
Thank you.
Great, yeah.
So we need regs.
We have, yes, we do the regulations, and basically the comments in those DD regulations are really going to be important for you guys too, because it spells out that, number one, we can get in at any point in time. If we get an allegation of abuse or neglect, we can go into any service provider, any setting, to check on the status of that person. If we suspect that a person with a disability is in a facility, we can go in and check and eyeball that person and hopefully talk to them. And there's very, very few limitations for when we cannot.
So HIPAA doesn't block you from anything?
HIPAA does not even apply to PNAs.
Okay, good.
As long as we are acting under the law.
Very
We try to exceed our authority, or if there's a state law that comes into conflict.
Does it, can state law override you, or are you exclusive?
We're basically, no, we preempt everything.
Okay.
We have to make sure that if we want to get records, I think we had a case that gets you made familiar. We sued DDSN a few years ago about CTH2s.
Okay.
Remember that case?
No, I don't.
He wasn't.
Oh, that's right.
Most of us are brand new.
He is a lawyer though, so he's going to ask you lots of questions. Lawyer to lawyer.
That's okay. I usually go out and I'm facing law enforcement, training them about crisis intervention, so I'll do my best.
Well, the possibility, instead of this is just what I'm going. Instead of lawsuits, we ought to be segued with you so that at every turn we're working with your group. This should be right up our alley in a sense.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't have to sue us.
Yeah,
that's a big problem that y'all would bother to sue us. It seems
Why we're glad you're here.
No, the last time we sued you, actually, we settled it in a good way because that was the regulation.
Sometimes it's necessary, yeah.
Make those regs.
Yeah.
And y'all finally agreed, so we're getting it.
Yeah.
So, our access authority, again, it lets us go in. We get to determine probable cause, which is an important thing. If I believe that there's a person with a disability that is subject to abuse and neglect, y'all got to let me in, okay? And none of this is going to come as a surprise to you. Y'all, either we're going to get a call from a family member, because there's a lot of people with DD, unfortunately, that cannot call on their own, or it's going to be a worker that calls us. We do get a lot of calls from your employees that say, we're concerned about this. There's a family member that's not consenting. What do we do about this? Or we're working too hard. And the reports are confidential. I'm going to tell you right now. We are both under federal and state law. We keep all of those reports confidential so we can have a good faith report from somebody. And I'm not going to tell you who it comes from. Now, if it's something that needs to be referred to SLED, my first question is, did you make that report to SLED? Has it gone through that process? Are they investigating? We're not going to interfere with a criminal investigation because we want anybody who commits abuse and neglect and really harms our clients and your clients, we want them to be prosecuted. So what we will do is we will try to hold back so that we don't go in and do the interviews and interrupt that criminal investigation process, but we can get access to all of those files.
But if it hasn't gone to SLED, then you can come in on a civil basis and determine probable cause yourself.
Yep.
Does that then you present that to whoever, and if they don't do something, do you take that then, does that go to federal court automatically? Where's your jurisdiction?
Well, this is the thing. Our jurisdiction basically is always litigation or negotiation or something to get the services there. So I can't find anybody directly. I'm not a law enforcement official, so I can't arrest them. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to ask everybody else to do their jobs. So a lot of times what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to DDSN, and I think Rufus.
Yeah, right over there.
Sorry, it's been a long time. We used to talk on the phone. It used to be Dale, and then it became Rufus. I was like, okay, Rufus, we got this report, or Rufus, we got this email that somebody's, got a question or they've got a problem. What's going on with this? Why can't we get this person out? Or why, what's going on with this situation? So we bring it back to you guys. We take it to SLED. If we have to, we're gonna go to Department of Justice or anybody we can go to. We're gonna go and complain if we get to that point. And if necessary, we're gonna bring litigation. And unlike legal services, we can bring class actions. And that's what we've done in the past. When we sued Department of Mental Health about community integration, that was a class action. But we try to make litigation a last resort. I'll tell you honestly. And when I file a complaint for a fair hearing, because I think HHS has unfairly, or DDSN has unfairly denied eligibility to somebody, you guys are going to know about it first. We're going to try to negotiate it out. But if I have to file that complaint, I'm going to do that too. So our authority comes in through the court system, and our enforcement ability comes through that negotiation and the court system and the other advocacy. The monitoring allows us to go in to see the individuals, but it also allows us to come in and check the conditions. Are you keeping places clean? What is your staffing levels? A lot of the same stuff that you're looking for just to make sure that you're meeting some of those federal regulations as you operate that intermediate care facility that you have at the Witness Center or down in PD or Coastal Center. We're going to look at those federal regulations. If we have to, we're going to go through and check those staffing levels. Are those people getting breaks? We're going to come in, we're going to look at quality of life too, which is a little different, because we're going to ask those things that are included in the Bill of Rights for people that live in long-term care facilities. Do they know that they might have the right to vote? Do they know that they have the right to personal telephone conversations and that they have the right to actually have access to a phone somewhere? They have the right to have visitors. They have the right to get mail. They have the right to a personal needs allowance as long as they're in a facility. So we're going to look at those types of things if we have to. One of the programs that we've been doing with Department of Mental Health for a long time is under a combination of our federal authority and the state code, what we call the team advocacy section of the state code that appointed us as the P&A. And this program has been running since, I think, '86. We go out and we do 72 inspections a year of community residential care homes. And we look at all of those things. And we're directing those efforts of people at homes that have a contract with Department of Mental Health to provide beds. And they also are people who are poor enough that they're getting the optional state supplement under Medicaid to actually afford for them to live in those homes. So we go out and we do a walkthrough, we interview those clients, we interview staff, we look at records, and then we report back to the facility. We report to DMH, DDSN.
Who do you report to at DDSN?
There's actually a couple different people, and I can't remember.
Well, this commission right here has vigorously asserted that it wants to understand and know what's going on, and never to be surprised by issues like a lawsuit. And then we get phone calls, what's the lawsuit? Well, we don't know what you're talking about. Because as a group, we have said we want to understand, we want to have hands on, and if there's not cooperation, if there's not integration of what is happening, then we want to be able to assert, even if it's to say, no, you've exceeded your authority on this one, even if at least we stay cognizant of what has happened. So my question, and when you were going to leave, I was going to ask the group, well, this is actually kind of exciting because it gives us another mechanism that we can see what is happening. And listen, knowledge is power. And to understand what is happening, this would give us grounds to say, well, if this is going on there, if they're right about that, then we need to check and make sure it's corrected in all the facilities or whatever, whoever we have contracts with. So my question to the group would be to leave it to the group, but I want the commission, and it might be to ask you that if there's an issue that arises that gets unresolved some sort of way at that point, if it's unresolved, then the chairman of the commission should be informed. That should be at least one person. Certainly the executive director should be informed at the outset. So you say you don't know who it is. Well,
no, I'm saying our reports, because these are written reports that are mailed out to a whole, and it's more than one staff member at DDSN that gets them. I just can't remember the name. But basically, y'all get, the DDSN employees are going to designate people that receive these reports and let us know at different levels who gets them, and we automatically mail these out. And I will tell you, these reports are team advocacy reports, and these are directed towards basically the ones I've just been describing to people with mental illness. If we find somebody with DD, that's why y'all are included in those reports. The other more general
Probably risk, am I correct? This probably falls under our risk group.
It's brought, like years ago, there was a report, No Place to Call Home, that was a really exhaustive report of community residential care facilities, which a large part of that is out of network, but it was a great report that we were able to, actually it was positive towards the DD system, but really pointed out a lot of regulatory failures and lack of enforcement issues. It was a really good report that went to a number of agencies and a number of providers.
Well, I definitely want to see us communicate better with your group. I didn't understand what you all did until we had our meeting this month. And I feel like that this is something that we can really work on. There should never be a reason for you all to have to sue us. If it ever gets to that point, I hope that you will call me and then I'll intervene with the commission and bring the commission involved.
It probably wasn't necessary. The communication was the problem.
That's right.
And if y'all would have communicated properly, you probably wouldn't have had to sue us.
That's right.
But that's another story.
But
we did communicate, and there's, sometimes there's a difference in the interpretation of the law.
Well, true, very true.
And frankly, that CTH2 case we lost in state court because the state court believed the agency's interpretation over ours. We still should have won, we were still right.
Nothing wrong with that, in my opinion.
Of course, the lawyer's always right. Could I, one last, one way to avoid kind of the back and forth of who the communication individual should be. I think if we had a letter from executive director and a letter, joint letter from the two of you asking this group, this wonderful group, that if there should be any issue, any problem that might bring a resolution internally, that on everything of that nature, that at least one of the entities that's communicated with, aside from whoever you're doing it with, must be the two of you. Y'all got to know, and I think a letter just requesting that and putting that on record, that would go a long way, especially in front of a judge, okay? They never called us, Your Honor, and we asked for communication. There was never communication. And so we would ask, boom,
Let's do that. And, I think that would be great. I think if we can, and even if that happens, we sit down and try to talk through it and see where we are before we go to that.
Yeah, we've done that in the past, and we usually do that with
That's
everyone.
our first step.
Our whole thing is, we would rather that you guys have notice of things so that you can correct the problem as soon as possible, because there's a lot of good people out there providing services. And the goal for everybody is to get the best quality of services and care and opportunities for all of our clients. So we're really happy to share anything that we can do, and we will overshare at times. So y'all just let us know when we need to cut off. But thanks for letting us come in today.
Thank you for coming.
And anything that we can do, we'll come back in. You have further questions?
I just want you to elaborate on one thing. The training that you do, can you speak to that a little bit, and maybe specifically if there's some trainings that would benefit us as an agency? And because if you've got some things that we could benefit from, we need to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, that's that's the other part of kind of monitoring and the authority that we have. Our training is focused in two different areas. The first area is to train the client and their families about their rights and how to self-advocate and how to advocate for their family member, if that's the case. The second important piece of training that we can do and that we've frequently done is train staff about those same things and about abuse and neglect in general and how to prevent it. And everybody, how do where do you report and what does it go? Why is it so important? And also, one of the things that y'all need to recognize is the long-term care ombudsman also does training, and they do free training. We've had some conversations with Dale Watson, who is the state long-term care ombudsman recently, and talked about how's training going in your systems. And you need to ask your questions. When's the last time that the state long-term care ombudsman or one of her regional person was invited in to train your staff? That's a question I think y'all need to ask.
State ombudsman is under the gov or under?
It's in aging. Dale Watson is the actual individual. Council on Aging. We can get, and I can actually give you her emails, and she'll be happy to talk with you about this.
I think you're working on it.
She's part of it.
Chairman LaMelle or former Chairman LaMelle is in charge of the training task force. And so he is, I think, working with them. Yes, I think they're working on some of that.
Now, one thing to look at is the difference between, we go to the HRC meetings, we also listen to the HRC meetings. And with your CTH2, Human Rights Committee, sorry.
Every acronyms you would use to be less would be nice.
I was fortunate enough to come over to P&A in 2001, and it took me forever, but I finally got all those acronyms, so I can confuse people. All right, so at HRC, Human Rights Committee meetings, all of your regional centers are required to have those. And all of them, there's actually code sections in the state law that sets up and requires Human Rights Committee and gives you some directions. And all of your regional centers have those every month. And we go to those and we observe and we bring things back to the staff and we ask questions. But also every provider, like your boards, also have Human Rights Committee meetings. Now in your CTH2s, when you brought in private providers, you let them choose where they're going to go to bring in abuse and neglect and go through. And so a lot of your providers are going into your local boards, and that's where any abuse and neglect is discussed. If there's been something, this is October, so basically they're going to come in and they're going to talk about what happened in September. And some of those things that they're going to hear about is how many consumer concerns is what they're calling them. How many consumer concerns were reported from Witten Center in September? How many complaints were taken to SLED, and what's the status of those investigations?
How do we find out about that? Is that something that then comes to us as a commission, or is that stayed just local with their observation group?
They should be reporting up through the staff members.
That's that report we get, that incident report we get.
Yeah, you should have an incident report.
So we get something then.
We don't see it monthly.
Or quarterly.
You probably see it quarterly, yeah.
We do get one, and Dalton comes and gives it to us.
Yeah, and Dalton. And, the HRCs do that. They come through those little committees. They look at every time there's a behavior support plan, there's an annual plan, there's a change, any kind of question. Those human rights committees are the first people on the ground besides the family and the clients themselves to look out for your clients. So you've got those at the local board levels, you've got those at the regional centers. And one of the things I know your staff has been working on for a long time is trying to recruit people to be on the HRC committee. They want people that have some interest. Witten Center, for instance, they've got a lot of people up there because there's a pharmacy school in that area. So they have 2 or 3 people the last time I went that were professors, and they would come in. They've got people from the community. They've got people who are family members who actually had people that lived in some of those units up there. So they know to ask questions. The stronger your HRCs are, the stronger your protection is of your clients. So that's another area that I would focus on and ask questions about. How are we set up those HRCs? Are we supporting them appropriately? Are we recruiting people for those? How do we make those happen? And what I was getting to on the CTH2s is y'all gave them a choice. They could actually choose to go to an HRC at the Witten Center and have all of their concerns and their reports funneled up through there, or they could go through the local boards. I haven't had a chance. We have very few staff, so we haven't gone in and listened to, routinely monitored the performance of the HRCs from the local boards. I think those are probably very strong, but I would check and see, how are the boards? Are they having trouble recruiting people? Do they need more support there? And how are those providers reporting? Are they cooperating with your HRCs? Are they cooperating with your internal staff? Because if
Well,
they're not cooperating.
if you found a problem out there with one of a group that they had oversight of, how would you then interface by whatever mechanisms you have? It wouldn't be our fault, so to speak.
Okay.
Our being the commission.
All right, so your example. So let's talk about this. Let's say a few years ago, Mentor had a situation where they had some people who unfortunately eloped. There were problems.
You say elope?
Eloped. They were individuals who were in a CTH2, and basically they were supposed to be monitored every 15 minutes because these individuals had a long history of running away. And there were a couple of individuals, one in the upstate, and then a year later, I think one in Charleston, who in spite of all the efforts, I think that in one situation, the alarm on the doors wasn't working. There was one staff member it was in the night, they were supposed to be checking on this person every 15 minutes. They didn't check on the person. He got out the window or the door, got up the street, got killed, died, got run over. So that came up through, I think that came through the HRC. I know that it got reported to us, it got reported to the newspaper, and there was an internal DDSN investigation, and of course, Mentor, I think, eventually terminated the person. There was a lot of work done to correct that. Then the second incident came through, and a lot of the improvements that had been suggested a lot of the recommendations suggested from the first situation had already been used to improve the situation in the Mentor home down in Charleston, and this person still got out. In that case, there were some other failures that occurred there. But I think in that situation, everybody, including staff members at DDSN and Mentor, had done everything they could do, and this person still got out. And they still got run over, they still got killed. So, again, with that interplay between your CTH2s, how strong of staff do you have to work with those people? Do they understand that DDSN is the agency that created the CTH2s? That DDSN sets the standards and directives and eventually will promulgate regulations to put those standards and directives into the law so people can know what they are, and who's enforcing those standards and directives. Who is your staff members who do that? That was what our CTH2 case was about. We wanted to start doing monitoring.
Rufus is in charge of everything that's a mess, so so it's his responsibility. I can go ahead and tell you that. I'll give you a cell phone number if you need it.
We've already got his cell phone.
Got a cell phone number. Okay, there you go.
He's got ours.
Well, I appreciate you all for coming today. If you don't mind, if you have a card, if you would leave it with each commissioner, that way they can get in touch with you, or if you don't mind sharing your phone number with them, that way they can reach out to you if they have individual questions.
And at the end of the end of the slide, you'll see email addresses, and you'll see toll-free numbers that you can contact us to. That's for Beth and me. So you can do it that way, or we can leave cards too. And you can go, there's lots of different ways you can make those reports. You can call, you can email us directly. You can do, info at Panda, I think is our DRC. We changed our name, so I'm still adjusting that too.
And we also want to reach out to you, Director Fry, and set up time to talk with you, because I think some of these things, we went through quite a bit.
Right.
And really kind of starting to look at steps we can put in place, because, we want to be able to communicate well with you, and we want to make sure that we get the communication we need to do our work as well.
That sounds wonderful. Well, we look forward to working with you and having a positive working relationship with Disability Rights South Carolina. And we do thank you for coming in and helping us to have a better understanding.
We appreciate y'all inviting us in. And as Beth said, we look at all of this as an opportunity for us to move forward, and we're really excited about it too. So thanks.
Thank y'all. All right, thank you again. All right, now we're going to move on to our committee business, Finance and Audit Committee, Commissioner Blackwood.
Okay. So the Finance and Audit Committee meeting was on Monday of this week, October 18th. And I have 3 items to discuss today, a few that do need full commission approval. So the first item on the agenda is Directive 200-02, which is the financial management of personal funds directive, which is in your binder behind tab 4. We reviewed the updates to this existing directive. The directive was put out for public input for about 10 days or so, and then we reviewed it after that time in our last meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee meeting. And so this directive was approved in committee, so I think today it just needs a second from the commission.
Okay. So. Do I have a second on this policy coming out of Finance and Audit with the?
Actually, it comes out of policy. I mean, finance has a motion and second, and we need to vote on it.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the matter then? Hearing none, we're going to take a vote. All in favor of approving this motion, please, this policy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The policy is approved.
All right. So the next item from my committee is the report on the threshold spending, financial approval and threshold spending. We discussed 3 items, 2 that need commission to approve, and 1 that the committee approved. And I will just start with that one, which is in green on your documents behind tab 5. That is the 200 or greater increase in personal positions for a program or division. And the specific item under that subhead is for FEMA generators. We looked at the suggestion that we go with 1 of 5 vendors. The one that we selected was PowerPage Systems out of Gastonia. And this item was approved in committee. So it's just an update of what we approved spending on. Pat, is there anything more about the generators that we need to share that I didn't?
These are FEMA grants that emanate from 2016-17 floods. This is probably our 4th gyrations on it, and we've promulgated probably 25 to 30 throughout the state.
Yeah, just to give some background on this, what it's from is this is in response to Hurricane Irma. Back in October 16, 2017, the Federal Emergency Management Agency issued a federal disaster declaration, which authorized funds available in a hazard mitigation grant, which is everyone gets a chance to apply for this pot of money to go do projects that would benefit in an emergency situation. This was approved on the 5-year plan. One of these is going to a state facility, so it had to go through the downtown CPIP process. To give you some information on the bid, our original estimate on this project was about, and what FEMA approved us for was $568,000. Our bids came back when we put this thing out to bid, took bids on September 30th. Our low bid was $626,000. So we are over budget on this thing. With regards to our low bid, that's kind of what we're seeing in the industry now with delays and equipment being on hold. So we are a little bit over budget now. FEMA is going to reimburse up to 75% of our original amount of $568. At the end of this grant, they'll go back and review everything. If there's additional money left over, they'll reimburse us up to 75% of that 526 or 626.
All right.
So,
There's a motion and a second coming out of committee.
Actually, it was one of the items that we went ahead and voted on.
So we don't have to. Okay.
Yeah, for that item, correct. there are two items though that the other items that we want the commission to vote on. So I'll go ahead and go to the Witten Interactive Garden since Andrew's standing up there and he has some additional information on that. But basically, I'll let you talk about.
Yeah, this is a project that.
Sorry, what tab are we in?
5, I believe.
Yeah, still tab 5.
Tab,
Yeah.
where are we on tab? I'm on tab 5.
We're at
Excuse
the
me.
last item on page 1.
This project was brought to us by Witten Center. I believe old executive staff there mentioned it to me a time before, but they were really wanting to start pushing this. What this is kind of a phase 2 part to the pavilion and basketball courts that they have there in the center of campus. What they want to do is install an interactive garden. They've got a couple of these around the state. I know Riverbank Zoo has a pretty good one. But really, it's just a gathering place, outdoor gathering place with different stations and interactive features such as water features, musical features, benches, parking.
Have you checked out Miracle Park up in Rock Hill? It's a great place out here. I wouldn't want you to leave out any of their great ideas.
I've heard about that.
They have a really nice sensory section.
Yeah, this is not really much of a playground, but more of a hangout spot for families and consumers and stuff like that. But I believe the Witten Center Trust Fund was wanting to put some funds towards this, and I think Rob's got some information on how the funds are coming about with this thing.
Yeah, this is going to be primarily funded by the Witten Trust Funds, which, it's trust funds that are held in trust for projects at Witten Center for the improvement of Witten Center. The Parents Council at Witten Center is supportive of this. This is something that is a legacy project that was supposed to have been conducted right after the shelter was put in place, the pavilion shelter, and for a variety of reasons, it never got off the ground. So what we're trying to do right now is get it completed and bring it to fruition. The funds are there in the trust fund for it, and it's a good project that will improve Witten dramatically.
And so we voted in the Finance and Audit Committee meeting to allow DDSN to pass through the funds or purchase on their behalf with their money?
Because it's going through the agency, the money's got to go downtown into the treasury account for this. Basically, we handle it like any other CPIP project, so that's why we're bringing it to the commission.
It's their money.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
we're actually in charge of constructing this.
Yeah, we're in charge of spending the money, so.
Right.
So that's correct. And we met, Rob and I, we met with the landscape architect a couple weeks back. That's where we kind of put the budget numbers together for this thing. Right now, it's all kind of conceptual, but we're just kind of kicking it off.
So it was voted on out of committee, so it just needs, so I guess. Committee approval? Yeah, committee approval, because we got a
All right, we have a motion and a second to allow them to move forward with this. All in favor, please signify, or is there any more discussion?
We give any priority to in-state or minority firms, these things?
When we bid them out, we typically go low bid. So that's general procurement rules there. So.
But the vendors have to be approved through the state.
Yes,
so
they
we can
are.
only choose from the
Yeah, we
vendors
can only
that
use them.
are approved by the state.
That's
So
right. But you could see out-of-state vendors, but yeah, that's correct.
But it's not necessarily always the low bid. It could be other factors.
Correct. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor of this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays? Ayes carried, motion carries, we'll move forward with that.
okay, the last item on this tab, that we looked at and approved was the approval for the extension of TheraP. Of course, TheraP is the software that all providers use to process information about our consumers, and that program software is originally signed for 7 years, and we need another year on that provider. And so we basically voted to allow that to happen in the committee. And the main thing about that is we need to look, the agency needs to look at and prepare for when this contract is up in a year, because we'll need to determine if there are other providers that we want to review and see if their product is better than the one we have, or if we're going to, consider Therap going forward. But this is just a 1-year extension, but there is a need for the agency to look at making sure that we want Therap to continue, or if we want to look at another provider soon, since this year will be up before we know it with this contract. And so we want to be in a better place to determine if we need to change, who we're changing to, and go about the bid process that we do for any big contract like this.
Okay.
So that's.
That came as a motion and a second on
it did, yep.
All right, any discussion on this matter?
Who are the experts on this?
Say it again.
Who are the experts on this that's going to advise us?
That's.
We haven't gotten that far yet to be advised. We're figuring out who's going to advise us.
It's such a big decision. This 1-year sole source contract, one of the main drivers is, as we enter into fee-for-service, our providers are now allowed to direct bill HHS. And that, because of their ability to bill another entity, how it affects our billing system, there's just a lot of things up in the air. So we felt 1 more year to let fee-for-service clear, let direct billing clear, and then we'll make a determination as to what requirements we need going forward. And once we develop requirements, then we compete it. But because it's such a integral part of what we do every day, we have to be super careful with ourselves and our stakeholders in making that move, because of the administrative burden on everybody to shift from one enterprise platform to another. So we just want to get into fee-for-service, see how it operates, see how direct billing works, and then we'll come back to the commission as to what we foresee as, we will have to compete something, or we'll have to make a determination that we are so immersed and ingrained in this platform that it would be in the best interest of the state to continue it for a number of years. So because of the year we're in, we just want to have a year of sole source, and then we'll reassess it after fee-for-service starts.
One thing that I'd like for us to make sure we address when we do address this, I was fortunate enough to be able to go over and tour Salibi Center and talk with some of the staff about Therap. And one of the things that the weaknesses that I found with Therap is that when I asked a person, I said, tell me about this individual, and they could tell me her name. They couldn't tell me when she came there, how she came there. There's no history. There's no personal history. Does she have any family? It's not, Therap does not offer that right now. There's no information in Therap. As if you had a paper file, you could look back and see what the patient's history is. And I think that's something we've got to stop looking at our consumers as numbers. They're individuals. And I want us to get back to that, making sure that when we talk about these patients, we look at them as individuals. And so I want to make sure whatever we do, whether it's they continue to stay with Therap or go with another provider, that is an option that's there for us. Okay.
And oftentimes the staff, from what you learned, they are their main contact out
in the world
or in their day at all.
Yeah.
And so these individuals that come in and work, sometimes they know the people, sometimes they're brand new, whatever DSP, they have no way of knowing anything about that person so that they can talk to them and talk to them about their grandchildren, or talk to them about that they know that they used to ride horses when they were little, or talk to them about any type of personal information that would make a connection and strengthen the caregiver patient individual relationship. There's nothing to go off of, and unless that person can tell that person anything,
there's nothing there.
There's nothing. And to me, that would improve the quality of care that our individuals would have when working with our employees or
And
the,
if you talk to the staff, they can explain it perfectly. And that's a concern that I have. And after spending the day there, that was one of the main things that really hit me hard, is that they don't have a way to be able to know that information. So if we can just, when we work on Therap, or work on whatever it is we end up
software we
using,
need for report.
let's
yeah.
just make sure that that is somewhere in the options, that it's a more personal approach.
So maybe, may need to be talked to about improving their software
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
It might be something they can add.
Go with them.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of being complacent about, well, hopefully they'll, I imagine they'll just take us another year. We could say, if you'll improve it, maybe we will take you another year, or 2 years,
Yeah.
or 5 years, or whatever. 7 years is a long time. I hope we would do a little less than that next time, but go ahead.
I would agree. It's, one of the challenges with their app has been, it's been kind of let to organically develop, as opposed to do it with intentionality that you talk about, like, we're going to do it this way everywhere. And I think that's part of our challenge, is to optimize what we already have. But there's a lot to consider before you invest, and a good system makes life easier for everybody, so it's a big decision.
Good. Well, that was my only, I wanted to just add that, so that is noted somewhere.
I remember you telling me about that after that visit, and I'm glad you
Okay, so we
mentioned it,
have,
because I forgot about it.
so we have a motion and a second to extend this contract for 1 year. Is there any further discussion on this matter?
So I just have one question.
Certainly.
From a fee for service perspective in January, will that have any impact?
Well, it won't have an impact now because we're using the same system, but it would have if we had changed. That's why we decided to make it a non-competing another year, primarily because of fee for service, because now we don't have a transition period.
I think my question probably lend more toward, would DHHS have a say-so in this matter? I imagine that would be my question. Going forward, when January 1 rolls in.
Yeah, my thinking is, as we talk with DHHS on all things fee for service, this would obviously be one of the issues we need to make sure we discuss in case the software, for whatever reason, on for their reporting methods as things change, would be addressed. So that's how.
You definitely need to keep that.
Oh, clearly.
Front and center.
You got that put on the notes? Okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor of extending this contract for 1 year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the ayes carry. The motion carries, and the contract is extended for 1 year.
All right, the last item that I have is under tab 5, which is the band B&I report for 2021. In our Finance and Audit Committee meeting, we discussed several requests for band switches for several consumers, and the agency reviewed and disapproved 3 of the 4, but approved one band switch, and the committee voted on that, approving that one outlier band switch, and so it came out of committee approved, and so the commission just needs to approve it.
All right. Sorry, I got turned around.
Yes, tab 6, and it's just that the outliers that we review month to month, and we had one that we approved to change bands.
Okay. All right. Is there any discussion on this matter?
I don't have a discussion, I just have a question. And that is, outliers are increasingly, hopefully, going to be a thing of the past whenever we go to fee for service. But my question was, one time, Rufus gave us a word for what outliers were once you went to fee for service. So what is the new word for outliers when you go to fee for service, Rufus?
Well, I don't recall what you're talking about, but
That
modifier, you're talking about modifier?
I think you called it a modifier, yeah. It's a different word for outlier whenever you go to fee for service. And I think you called it a modifier, I think that's right.
But those,
I couldn't find it in my notes either, I'm sorry.
Pat might have an idea on it too.
I think when we immediately start on January 1st, 80% of our individuals who serve residentially will be in a a CTH2 CRCF environment. And we have built-in tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4 based on need, so that when somebody, we have a wider spectrum of needs. So when someone's needs go up, we won't have to go to an outlier mode. We will be able to move them up through additional tier systems. So it'll give us latitude to give them more resources that are Medicaid matched, as opposed to the current model, which is through outliers and it's state funded. So that's the big change. I think the next generation of improvements after we get in the system, or what Rufus is talking about, is modifiers for unique circumstances that tiers don't address. But what we're trying to do is build a system that everything is Medicaid matched, and we just don't plug the system with state funds every time there's an exception.
Are this one? Are this?
That's why outliers are going to be gone.
Commissioner LaBelle.
Are those tiers based on the individual or the residents?
Both. Because if you're the individual, your acuity needs tier 1, 2, 3, 4 vary. And those tiers were set up for the person in that particular setting. If you're in a lower, like CTH1s have, if you're in a CTH1 setting, you have 2 tiers. So it's, each setting has their different acuity tiers.
And what's the turnaround time on, are we predicting on those acuity changes, right? Somebody starts on tier 1. Their needs aren't getting met. How quickly can they get moved to tier 2?
I think that's the implementation of a agency-wide assessment tool that we're in much need of.
Right.
When we start fee-for-service, everybody in our current situation will be migrated over, and we have a way to do that. And then Rufus is going to develop an immediate triage tool to bring to the commission so that we can have a tool to make this decision. But the long-range strategy is to build a comprehensive assessment tool, and most states assess people like obviously upon entry, and then every 2 or 3 years. And if their conditions happen to change suddenly during that 2 or 3 window, they can do it right away.
Right. Yeah, 'cause I mean, obviously the concern is you get somebody on the wrong tier, they're not getting the services they need because the funding stream isn't there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the ayes carry. Those modifiers are changed, or now they're called outliers or
Yeah.
outliers.
State
I
outliers.
just said the word. Outliers
Next year,
are
maybe
adjusted.
outliers.
Okay? All right.
There's, in the past, we've had separate motions for those we accepted and denied. Is that necessary? We had one we accepted and 3 we denied, so is it necessary to have a separate motion for those we denied?
I don't think we did it in committee.
We didn't do it in committee, but we did it
But
out
they
here.
did not do it in committee.
No, we didn't do it in committee, but we did it out here. I'm just wondering if it's necessary. Because we've done it in the past.
I think so. It's just a report. So we're just accepting the report.
And those are denied, so that's that.
It's written. I think we're good.
3 denied, 1 accepted.
Okay.
Yeah, that needs to be in the.
Yeah, the three and
motion.
one.
The 3 were, the 1 was accepted, 3 were denied.
All right, policy committee. We're going to Commissioner Malrose.
Oh, I like those words, policy committee. Thank you. I am the chairman of the policy committee. I'm Barry Malvers, the vice chairman of the board, for those that are tuning in that haven't for a long time, or maybe have been starting with us. We did not actually have a committee meeting this year, but, this month, but there was something that we wanted to bring last month, but didn't get it actually on the agenda for Freedom of Information Act reasons, and so we're so I'm talking about it today, which is simply to make a couple of modifications to the committee procedures for 2 of our committees. 2 of the committees, first of all, Finance and Audit and Legislative, will not have any changes, so we would recommend that those approvals as they were last year, and this year would be the same. The only 2 recommendations we would have is to the Personnel Committee, which one of them is to the Personnel Committee, which is simply that it should say that we recommend the actions to hire the executive director for approval by the commission, by the full commission, before it said that committee would decide who the executive director was. And the reason that got off our radar screen, just so you know. And the reason we didn't notice that last year and the year before is because since what I call the McMaster Commission, which is the majority of McMaster appointees took over the commission, that committee has been a committee of the whole and not of part. So that's why that wasn't noticed. But anyway, we're fixing it today. And the other one is, that's worth noting, is under, for the policy committee. Oh, the other thing that's worth noting is that we will have, before I get to the policy meeting, that we have an obsolete, for the policy meeting, we have an obsolete committee section, and that'll be a permanent part of our committee to have an obsolete list, which we've had for a couple of years. But this just makes it a permanent part of our committee to have for those policies that we make obsolete. And the last one is that the policy committee will be keeping a summary of minutes, which we haven't been doing in the past. We actually been keeping it, but we haven't been approving it, is what I should say. And it's not really minutes of the meetings, it's really a summary, which is a little bit different, but it's very similar. So with those, I would say that that would come out of the committee, the motion in the second to approve these procedures for all 4 committees now, which actually started in June, but we're a little bit late in approving them both.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve these changes to these policies. Is there any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, do all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The policies are approved. All right.
Thank you. That concludes our report. We will have another meeting next month on the second Tuesday. I don't have the date in front of me, but on the second Tuesday next month.
All right.
And Barry, if you want to do a yearly meeting, I don't think David or I would mind.
Yearly?
Really better than that.
Yeah.
I don't quite think we can do that. I'm sorry.
It might be a stretch. It might
It might be a 2-day meeting.
I would like next month for us to do a legislative committee meeting and a report, if you don't mind, Commissioner Miller. If we can next month, I would like for us to resume our task force work now that our new executive director is in
Just in time for Thanksgiving, yeah.
That's right, just in time for Thanksgiving. So let's next month plan on giving reports from our task force that we're all.
We're gonna have a problem with Thanksgiving, all the holidays coming up, trying to get,
We're gonna be tight. But let's try to get a report together. Even if you don't have a meeting, give us a report so that we can at least know where we are in that process. And then we'll hold it over till January, okay? All right, now, Commissioner Blackwood, let's move on to the Fmap Subcommittee.
All right, so we met on October 6th, our Fmap Subcommittee. It was a pretty short meeting for the most part. FMAP funds are still not dispersed as of October 6th, unless Pat has anything additional new on that.
Same.
Okay. So the 10% money has not been dispersed, and I am even thinking that our plan has not even been approved or blessed yet, has it? I don't know if we exactly said that was.
We have not gotten any information from HHS. I think they're waiting for the final statewide plan to be approved. And we're part of
Right,
that.
so they could even come back to us with something maybe, or
It's not
like
until it's
a
over.
question.
We only have
or-
one small question about
Okay.
our components, so I feel.
Okay, of our first plan that we blessed and approved many months ago now. I think it's been 2 or 3, right? I can't remember the date of it, but I know we had to have
At least 3.
yeah. So we're still waiting to get the approval on the FMAP money budget items. And in the meantime, we are not going to move forward with all of the procedures in how we're going to disperse all of the buckets of money. As you might recall, it was 12 different items that we wanted the money to be over.
That's a shifting number too, isn't it, a little bit?
No, we approved 12. I mean, it was a guess of what we would get. We don't even know the amount yet that we're getting.
That's what
But
I say.
we were asked to.
Recommendations for different, for modifications and so.
So there's not really a whole lot of updates, I guess, is from when we've submitted our budget approval, what we've wanted the funding to go towards. The committee, you know, has been meeting. We've met twice since we submitted the plan. And we've talked through the various buckets of money and how we might look at dispersing certain parts of it. You know, we don't want to go too far down making plans on all of the money because we don't know how much we're getting. We don't know if it will be approved as is. So we're kind of in a little bit of a limbo waiting, but we're trying to address the things we can address in our committee and talk through some areas that we'll have some flexibility. But it's not ideal to be kind of waiting for.
Commissioner Butler, who is holding this up? Do you know?
My understanding is,
'cause I'm getting calls. I mean, I'll just tell you, I'm getting calls from providers who are saying, hey, get us some Fmap money. We need some Fmap money. You know, we need Fmap money. And we're not getting a response. And I feel responsible because we put it out there that we're getting this money.
Well, we did a listening session around it.
Yeah.
To develop our plan.
Right.
We voted on that plan as a commission. We submitted it to DHHS. DHHS has a part of the plan that they have to submit as well with what they're doing, you know, and what they manage. And then, so together, our plan, their plan was submitted to CMS. CMS is Center for Medicaid.
And that's federal, correct?
Federal, yes.
Okay.
So
maybe our federal legislators need to get involved and call CMS. Is that, I mean, because I have some contacts I can make there and I'm sure you guys do as well. Would that help us?
CMS has to do the final approval. The
Okay.
last time I talked to HHS, which is the point agency for the statewide effort,
Okay.
they felt like it was getting very, very close. And that we are among other states in the same boat, waiting for that final approval. And that they've answered the obvious back and forth questions to satisfy CMS. But it's been closed for a while.
But it's nothing we're holding up.
No, we
it's.
do not have any, thing we're doing.
Chairman, could I?
We're close.
Yes, sir.
Real fast, let me address this to our executive director. You know, it might be that you could ask some questions of people that are kind of, you know, that you know who might be able to tell us if there's something that's holding things up a little bit and kind of come at it from a slightly different direction. I know you've just come on board, but do you have any angles for us on this? That it's kind of a conundrum, and I don't think any of us quite know what strings to pull, or if we just sit quietly and keep our mouths shut, we'd be better off. But do you have any observations on this particular problem?
No, I mean, I think that as Pat described, the agency that is the point agency on behalf of the entire state is HHS. We just had a meeting with them yesterday, and we can talk with them again specific to this.
Could you do that? And let's just get an addition to, I mean, from your perspective and who you're talking to, if it's the executive director at HHS, or if you know, can you be so bold as to actually make a phone call to Atlanta and ask, you know, and say, hey, what's up? I mean, with Fmap anyway, by the way, and see what.
Do that.
Well, we just heard that it was that ours is a part of a smaller, larger plan, a much larger plan.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of what's going on here that we need to keep in mind. HHS is driving this boat, and we're just a part of that plan.
Is it HHS or CMS who's really driving the?
Well, HHS is who will approve it, but HHS has to get the information to CMS, and they have. But I mean, well, really, I guess it would be CMS. But the point is, I know the amount of money we're talking about is staggering. But it is part of a larger plan, a much larger plan. We just need to keep that in mind. So
Well, but what my point is, that might help you if we could get the executive director at least in sync with, answering something. It might help you in, hey, we have talked at the highest level of CMS, at the highest level of HHS, and as best we can tell, the executive director says, it looks like it's within the next 30 days is a probability. That I think.
And I want to make sure too that we're distributing the money, or if HHS is distributing the money, because, obviously they're going to be getting the money if it's going through their thing. So we need to verify that information too.
That's right. That's another thing that hasn't verified.
If there's a moving part, Pat, and I thought that what we had sort of discussed in the last month or two about wages and that sort of thing to try to maintain wages. Remember, we to modify. It's a modification within the category. I think I'm not really exactly sure if I'm saying that right. Did I adequately portray? Well, I don't want that to necessarily be wholly. Well, the problem is you all in South Carolina have given us a modified possibility, and so we can't go forward with you. I mean, we've already okayed 5 states. So what is your problem I don't want to hear that. Yeah. So that's why I say sometimes a step higher might, excuse me, I'm not trying to say y'all, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
All right. Well,
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
We want to verify and then trust.
That's
I
right.
like that. That's good.
There you go. I like that.
Trust but verify but trust, or trust but
verify.
We're going backwards. We're going backwards nowadays. All right. All right. Is there a motion that needs to come on that, Robin,
No,
at all?
it's just an update, so
Okay.
people know what we're doing on Fmap.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to the IDRD waiver. Lori Menace. Hey, Lori. Good morning.
How are you?
Good afternoon.
Good morning. It's almost.
Almost.
Right, we're getting close.
So I'm here just to give you my monthly report on the IDRD waiver renewal. The renewal document was submitted to CMS prior to the beginning of October deadline. There were a few changes with the renewal, nothing really substantial, but HHS.
From our perspective or their perspective?
So what happens is HHS puts the renewal out for public comment. I know you remember that, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So they're the state Medicaid agency. So they are the ones who submit the renewal to the federal agency.
Right.
So the renewal was submitted to HHS, but prior to submission, it goes out for public comment. And part of the renewal process is that all public comment gets put into the renewal document and HHS responds to that public comment. So there were just a couple of changes made based on public comment, which is really good. Like an example of one is in the initial posted document, there was a limit on in-home supports of 28 hours a week, which is a new service that's being added to the ID waiver. And public comment said that in-home supports is intended to be kind of a combination service between respite and personal care. And the current limit of personal care is 28 hours a week, and the limit of respite is 60 hours a month. So since it's a combination service, you should increase that limit. And so they did that, and they increased the limit to 45 hours a week.
60?
Right, they increased the limit of the new service to include both the limits of personal care and respite, which was the right thing to do, right? So they changed that limit to 45 hours a week. They also changed a few wording, but primarily the document is kind of what has been presented to you as far as the new services and the changes in service. There is a lot in the renewal. So at this point, Health and Human Services has had their 15-day call with CMS. So that 15-day call is really kind of a check-in. We got your document. We're going to review it. We'll let you know if we have questions. We are expecting to get, any questions or clarification from CMS, and we will assist HHS in answering that if necessary. In the meanwhile, we're working with Health and Human Services to start to do some policy updates in anticipation of it getting approved the way it was submitted. A big part of that is residential tiers. You guys were talking about that earlier. So we are engaged with some technical assistance that is provided through the National Association for State Directors of Developmental Disabilities. We're working with them to try to come up with the assessment piece that, Rufus is kind of working on, to help us decide where we place people in tiers and that kind of thing. So, there's a lot going on, but it's all good and seems to be moving forward. Do you guys have any questions about that?
That sounds great. It sounds like things are going in the right direction.
Perfect.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, fee for service.
Like that, Lori. It's all good and things are moving forward.
That's right. That's right.
That was pretty good. Over the next couple of months, the tempo is really going to pick up. And me and Lori will be going back to back. She does the IDRD waiver renewal. I'm going to be talking about fee for service. Both big projects are starting on the same date, on January 1st. So that as we're working through the details to get us there.
One's not going to conflict with the other. They have nothing to do with
separate
each other,
projects.
right? Okay.
They're done on the same day. And I think that it helps execute easier when they're done together, but they are separate projects. I'll keep mine brief as well. We've been talking about fee for service for at least a decade. In fiscal year 20, we had tangible results with waiver case management being converted. Fiscal year 21, we converted our at-home services. And now on January 1st, we're going to convert our residential services, which is the bigger jump. That's probably 74% of all of our money is going to be converted on that day. The plan that you have in front of you, I've put a little chart in front of you. I don't want to tie up your valuable time today looking at those details, but I do encourage you, if you walk through those, you have questions, call me 24/7. I'll be glad to walk you through the many different tasks that we have going on in this building that are being wired together to get us to the finish line. The light green is what finance is doing. The orange is what ops are doing, and the dark green is what policy is doing. I'll just give you just some of the bigger issues that I think I would be concerned if I was in your chair. Obviously, one of the bigger issues is our technology system going to work to flip, the invoice and the payment system? There's no reflection on IT's work this morning. So IT, I tell you what, I love IT. IT, it's just, it always makes us nervous whenever we're doing a project like this, like we're going to have a gap. They've been leading us in our project plan. This morning, I learned from the team leader downstairs that they have approved their proof of concept. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to piggyback off the existing residential system that we have that providers are very familiar with. So they'll keep on doing what they're doing. And on our end, we'll be able to manipulate the data into invoices and to fee-for-service payments. And as we go forward, we have to be very precise in our communication and language, because this has been a big deal for a long time. And we think everybody is snapped in like we are, and they're not. So we'll be coordinating with HHS to really get the IDRD waiver and the fee for service to land at the same time. But we want to make sure that as we develop our communication strategies, that we are locked at the hip so that we don't have any miscommunication, because so many moving parts are getting us to.
Are you going to do anything, excuse me, Chair, I really have to, are you going to do anything by way of some sort of a get together? I know we're COVID and everything, but sometimes if you're sitting down with people, we're kind of please required attendance and make sure everybody is in sync.
When it starts, the rhythm will be high with the broader network, because this affects them, it affects the revenues. I think everybody's optimistic about how it's all going to end, but the devil's in the details. They're running businesses, they got payrolls to make. We've got to give them the certainty as exactly how the dominoes are going to fall. So before we roll out there and start talking, we want to make sure that we do it in a very methodical process. And again, we still have moving parts, and we're waiting for just a couple of parts to solidify so that we can come together. And once that happens, we'll be immersed within the provider community and communicating with them in many different and redundant ways, and certainly always be available, because we need to get them off on a smooth transition because this is a large part of their revenue piece, and we're switching from prospective payment to fee-for-service. There's many issues to be resolved. We've talked about them generally, but I think we're really going to button them down and then engage the provider community in the very, very near term.
Thank you.
And with that said, that kind of gives us a summary. And again, there's a lot of details in there. Please call me. I know you guys are interested. People will be talking to you. I'll be glad to talk to you one-on-one anytime about how all the pieces are coming together. And then we'll get with the providers and we'll get this thing finished.
I know we got this. Do you have a copy of this, Christy, to go on the website? Yeah, probably, because they're going to ask us for that, I'm sure, because people don't want to put everything on the website. So
They should.
we just need to put this.
That's just our internal project list to do. Nothing exotic in that. And with that, I will move on to cost reports.
Comment?
Sure.
Question. And Pat, I'm happy to hear you say that there's going to be a lot of work with the providers over the immediate future, because within my district, I've got a lot of feedback from providers on their concerns going forward. That I've got agencies that have very, very strong reserves that can weather a lot of hiccups. I've got other agencies that have just dug themselves out of massive holes that have worked tremendously to dig themselves out of that hole, but that means that they just don't have those reserves. But and they have been working very hard to try to get ready for this. But because there are so many moving parts between the renewal, they're having a hard time predicting budgets. How are they, that's the concern that I get. They don't know at the end of January what numbers. It's hard to set up a schedule when you don't know what your budget's going to be. And I think everybody, and I think other people have been reaching out.
I got 5 of those calls yesterday.
And I think their concerns are legitimate, and I think it's something that we have to be aware of as we're going through this process, that while they are working as hard as they possibly can, that predicting stuff right now for them is extraordinarily difficult. And that creates a lot of trepidation as to where they're going to be at the end of January with their own, budgets. And I don't, I'm not saying anything that's anything wrong. I'm just saying that fear is out there, and I think it's legitimate fear while they have worked as hard as they can to get ready for this stuff. And I think it's something that we as a commission need to be aware of, that we're going to have to keep a very close eye on the financial situation across the board to make sure that our consumers aren't suffering because during this transition, they don't have the predictive ability, because it's everything's so brand new. We just got to be aware of this.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Lamel just mentioned prediction. I thought he mentioned it twice, maybe 4 or 5 times.
Right.
And I imagine what I want to say is, I don't know whether we know enough yet to get too far down the road until we can actually know from DHHS how we travel this road.
That's correct.
And that would be, my recommendation would be to let Pat continue doing what he's doing, but because you got a lot of, we don't want to give out the wrong information.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, because then if we do that, then we're at fault, and that's not where we need to be at.
And in no way, Commissioner, I mean this as a criticism of Pat. I'm just saying that it's a concern that is in my opinion, a legitimate concern that we just need to be aware of.
And our providers are concerned.
Right.
I mean, it's not, this isn't something we can fix, I don't think,
Right.
but they're concerned, and we need to make sure that whoever's in charge knows that our providers are concerned.
But ultimately, we're the backstop if financially things start cratering.
Right.
Financially, we're the ones who are going to have to say, we have to take some action to prevent a fiscal crisis amongst our providers who are doing everything they can do. We have to be aware of that. We can't allow that crater to happen where we're losing.
We'll rely on State Director Fry to kind of lead us through that path of righteousness.
I agree. Okay. Anything else for Pat? Pat, do you need
I
any
would say,
motions?
I would just say that it's a very great concern. There's a few more pieces that are coming together. And I think everybody involved here, if they felt like there would be a stability issue, we were told to stop training and come right back to you and address it. But
I think there'll be an update on this matter in November. Is that correct, Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Yes.
All
There'll be
right.
an update on this matter next month.
All right, let's go on to the cost reports. Tell us where we are with cost reports, Pat.
13 and 14 are across the street at Department of Health and Human Services. 16 and 17 have been over there for a little while. 15, I have one more round of review notes. I should have that done this week. And then we will be caught up with the exception of 18, 20, and 21. 18, we are in the middle of looking at all the provider cost reports, and that's one of the biggest tasks is taking their cost reports and adjusting them to fit into our overall cost report. Our goal is between now and this time next year that 18, 20, and 21 will be done across the street. And then at the end of this month next year, providers will turn in their fiscal year 22 cost reports, and we will get on them on November 1st. And then we'll have a cost report across the street on February 1st, the following year, 3 months later. And then we get into that rhythm that they have fresh cost reports every year to give them the opportunities to adjust rates based on cost on fresh data.
Where's 19?
19 is done. 19 is the foundation of the IDRD waiver renewal.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. And so next month we'll have 15. Is that correct?
Across the street.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Okay, could I make a motion that we have a point of comfort for about 5 or 6 minutes?
I don't see a problem with that. Do I have a second? Do we have to have a second on point of comfort?
You can just decide.
Okay,
Well,
well,
you
I'm
can
gonna
also
make,
decide
I'm gonna
that.
make a point of comfort for 5 minutes. How about that?
Thank you. You can decide, yeah, you can demand that, by the way.
Not sure what I can do anymore.
Murphy, just when you thought you were about to get out of here.
Robin, do you have a rest, do you have a, here he comes.
I want to thank you all for giving us a few minutes to have a comfort break. We're going to start right back up where we were under number 13. Old business is internal audit. And we're going to have Ms. Courtney Crosby, our internal auditor, give us a slide report, special report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Courtney.
At our September meeting, we established the review of our 2020 report on agreed upon procedures as a priority for internal audit. And just wanted to give you a quick update on that. So we are pleased to report that the review of those 2020 agreed upon procedures reports for the DSN boards is complete. We still have 7 remaining reports for providers, so we'll be working to wrap those up. The contract reductions related to those 2020 reports total $17,800. Our 2021 reports are starting to come in, so we'll be sure to provide regular updates both to the Commission and the Finance and Audit Committee. We do have a number of fiscal year 2021 internal audits that have carried forward into 2022, and we're working to complete those as well. I gave an update on those at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting on Monday. There are 5 that have carried over. And we also have an entrance scheduled tomorrow with a provider, and that's being initiated at the request of management. We anticipate being able to issue our environmental modifications report in November, so that will go to you all. And we have set some target completion dates in December for a limited scope IT audit and for an audit of the Coastal Autism Division. I'm also working to develop an audit tracking report that'll summarize the findings, corrective action plans, and then follow-up procedures that we perform so that we can determine whether those corrective action plans have been implemented by management. So I hope to have that tool developed and ready to present at the November Finance and Audit Committee meeting.
Hang on, let her finish and then last word.
Oh, I was just going to ask if there are any questions.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Well, welcome on board, by the way.
Thank you.
And I know you've only been, what, 2 months? 2 months. 2 months. So from an internal audit perspective, there's nothing that you want to raise a red flag to us and say, something I've run across that you really need to kind of be aware of? Nothing like that, right? Everything's.
Not yet.
Okay. Just want to make
Still
sure
working on that learning curve too.
you're feeling comfortable that you can come before this board because the responsibility ultimately is to us.
Right.
You understand that? And nothing should be hidden from us,
Right.
correct?
I understand.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
Anything else for Courtney? Thank you, Courtney. We appreciate it today. All right, let's bring Pat Malley up to do our financial report under new business.
He's back. You're out of questions, sir.
Questions for Commissioner?
It's military, baby.
Yeah.
That's so right.
I'll be brief at the lunch hour. Tab 8, financial update. It's the one page that hopefully you've gotten accustomed to. We've tried to improve it this year by really bringing in our monthly payments to HHS on direct billings, which we pay at only the match. We're bringing the match plus the difference in, so we have an apples to apples comparison to our annual spending plan. And through the end of September, we're 75% through the year, and we spent 74.53% of our money, so we're just about 0.5% over budget, which in Medicaid terms is pretty good budgeting. If you look at the spending plan, is $815 million. We have kept that down until we implemented all of our fiscal year 22 appropriations, and in the month of October, we've implemented the $10 million. I want to thank HHS for getting us these rates so quickly. $10 million residential annual increase, $7.2 million respite, $7.2 million 2.5% increase, and we're asking for another $3 million today for the 1% retirement increase. So next month, you'll see the spending plan about $845 to $850 because there's more money that we're spending. One other financial event happened this month. The public health emergency has been extended one more quarter at the federal level, and that means Appendix K continues for at least 3 more months, and 6.2% Fmap continues through March 31st, which is another approximately $10 million in revenue for the agency. And that is my financial report. Any questions there?
Motion to receive or approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, it's approved.
And I'll go to tab 9. And this is processing the retirement and health insurance appropriations for fiscal year 22 to the provider network. I thank you for taking the time to read this memo in advance. There's a lot of complexity in here, and one of the reasons we're moving the fee for service is for transparency and simplicity, and I think this memo here gives us great reasons why we're moving to the new system. We were appropriated in fiscal year 22. The legislation tasked us to, and they fund it, 1% retirement employer contributions to all the state agencies, and they consider our healthcare provider network with state retirement as part of the system, and they give us appropriations to pass down to them. About 56% of our 9,000 employees in the community are in state retirement, and so we have a legislative requirement to get those provider agencies that 1%. Historically, this agency has provided that 1% to all agencies. And so there's 44% that are not in state retirement, but I can assure you they have their own equal employment costs as well. So we as an agency have provided them the 1% across the board, and that 44% comes out of our base. It's not necessarily appropriated, but I think it's the right thing to do. And in the past, we would easily just put it in the bands, and it was easy to implement. But now that we're, 1 foot in fee for service and 1 foot in the bands, and the bands are ending in less than 3 months, it provides a dilemma on us how to execute this legislative mandate. So in front of you, after you go through it, there's a chart on page 3 on the best way I came up to execute this, and it was as simple as I could make it. I vetted it to 11 finance directors and executive directors, and you'll see their comments in the back. Some said it's good, some said, I just said there was not a better idea out there. So I apologize for the complexity, but when you only have one option, that's the option that I think I'm recommending.
So we should be looking at table 2, is that what
you should be looking on page 3.
Yeah.
Table 2 is how I recommend we execute it. And I'll walk through the recommendations before you guys make any decisions so you can get the big picture. I'm recommending that we extend the 1% employer retirement cost increase to the 46% of providers that are not in the system to be fair and equitable. We also get a health care increase. And again, we pass that on to the provider network that has that's in the South Carolina health insurance system. That number fluctuates year to year based on available funds. This year, our allocation of the statewide pool was $91,000. I think $55,000 was for us, and the remainder was for the provider network. I recommend that we just take the entire $91,000 and devote it to the provider network and allocate it out to them, given the circumstances of today. And my third recommendation is going to be that that we allocate based on table 2. And if you look at table 2, there's 3 mechanisms that we can get them the money. 80%, the way to get them the money is put it in a rate, because rates go from year to year to year. And this is, when you give someone an employer contribution, that's forever. It's just not for 1 year. So we have to get it in a way that perpetuates ongoing. So we have to get it in a rate. 80% of the money that we're allocating is tied to daily residential rehabilitation or residential. Both those services are in bands, and both those bands are going to end on December 31st. All those activities will be fee for service on January 1st if all goes to plan. And in the process of building the IDRD waiver renewal, we all got together, providers included, and gave input to HHS and their consultant. And it was a component of that decision-making process for rate was using the state 16.5% employment retirement costs. So it's in that rate. So we have a duty to fund it from July 1st to December 31st. On January 1st, it's going to be in the rate. So I recommend doing the math and getting it to the providers, the easy part, but getting the approval to do a lump sum payment to the providers for those services for June 1st to December 31st, so that we can get that appropriation out to cover them for the first 6 months of the year.
Is this the Milliman report? What does this have to do with the Milliman report?
It does. I was just making the point that on the rates on January 1st of this year, when hopefully the IDRD waiver renewal takes place, this employment-related cost was factored into that rate. You follow me?
Yeah, is that Milliman?
It's Milliman.
Yeah, one of the providers called me, and the question they had for me was, how do they know that this 1% is included in the rates after January 1? How can they be assured of that?
My information today is when we went through the Milliman process of developing residential and day program rates, they had a chart. It was an assumption chart. And in that assumption, we provided them, and it was written that the employee-related costs that they assumed in the rate, they used the South Carolina retirement system, and it had just gone up 1% to, I believe, 16.5%. So they used that assumption. How they took that and put it in the rate is what rate setters do, but they had that assumption. And so taking the assumption to the rate is a rate setter decision, but generally speaking, that rate should incorporate employment-related costs.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because that was a question the provider had.
It's a great question. It's a great question.
Sure that we are looking at that.
It's a great question, and I can assure you, when we saw the assumptions, it was an employee-related cost assumption. For the next, the easiest implementation of this 1% retirement along with the health insurance is for the early interventionists. In that unique set of circumstances, that is the only split rate we have left, meaning that we get approximately, for every unit, we get approximately $25.54 per 15-minute unit that we bill. We pay the actual provider less than that. And that gives us a little bit of room to raise that rate ourselves without having to adjust our overall rate. So we're able to implement that without any problems for the early intervention providers. And the most difficult group are case managers and community ICFs. Both those rates are not affected by the IDRD waiver renewal. So I have to get it in the rate for them to get the money. And at a minimum, we have to give them a 1-year lump sum amount to get them for this year. But we have to recognize that this is recurring funds that we have to get in the rate. So I think what I need is, when we approve this plan, I'm going to recommend paying them for one entire year so they feel confident that they're good for this year. And then we have got to recognize that we have got to get these employment-related costs into the rates.
So that becomes an obligation for us.
Obligation.
Okay.
And how we get them in the rates, I believe we will. I didn't want to commingle this issue with the 2.5% because the 2.5% is very clean. The General Assembly said, DDSN, you pay 2.5%. They gave us enough money for the match. We need enough for the state match. We need the Medicaid match in order to be able to fund that 2.5% without dipping into our base. So I think that's a clean decision for them to make. It's sitting over there now. This decision is a little less clean because of the 44% factor. I will carry this over to HHS, explain our circumstances. They may elect to do it now, or they may say at the next rate change, we will do this. And then the question is going to be, when's the next rate change? And I have no idea if they're the rate setters. I will just stay on it until they get a rate change. I believe that they are using the fiscal year 19 cost report to look at all of our rates. And I think ICF is certainly, community ICF is certainly part of that process. So I'm hopeful that at least that rate will be adjusted based on the cost report. And maybe at that time, we can take care of that one. But we have to give assurances to the ICF community providers and the case managers that we're going to pay you for a year and that we're accepting the ongoing liability until we can get it in the rate. As convoluted as that is, given our circumstances, that is the best alternative I have to meet our legislative obligation.
Quick question for him, Chairman.
Yes.
Quick question. The August 5th memorandum that you sent to the Director Kerr, did he respond to that?
They responded to us, and I provided them the recommended rate increases for the 2.5% COLA, and that's sitting over there as we speak.
Okay, so they're aware.
They're waiting on that one.
Okay, but nothing that would indicate to you, certainly not in writing, you would have included it, but nothing that would indicate to you there's some kind of a problem with the.
I have no information as a problem.
Okay.
They have been, I think the only delay in my opinion would be they're so busy on the IDRD waiver, it just hasn't bubbled up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there was a response on the August the 5th.
They were receptive in taking our information.
That's all I need to know, thank you.
Pat, on the last page on page 10, it cuts our chart off, just so you know, and so we only get half of the column that says total residential rate increase.
Okay.
So if you don't mind, we might need your staff to print us a copy of that chart. What do you call it? Landscape, I guess, is what it's called.
We'll shrink it up. We'll shrink it up.
Either way, just so that we can see what we've got here.
Don't shrink it up much because some people's eyes can't see as well as others.
If they could just turn it the other way, that chart, and print us a copy of it, and could they do that and bring it down here, do you think? Anybody could do that?
Right now?
Yeah, is there any way?
I think it could be done in the next 5 minutes.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
For the private providers that are getting the 1% employer retirement contribution, I understood that correctly, right? You said that was happening?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
That's a recommendation. You guys have to approve it.
Right. What kind of guidance do they get about how they manage those funds?
Actually, if you look at number
4 on page 3. That's a great addition this year that wasn't there in the past.
It's, I think to be fair and equitable, the providers with the South Carolina State Retirement, and that's a big expense for providers. I mean, it's really big. They're devoting it to that because they have to. I think to be fair and equitable, it's a good recommendation to require those providers to accept the funds. That has to be for to offset to help employees from a retirement, health, or some other employee benefit perspective, so that it goes to the bottom line. In some respects, it's fair to the 56 providers that have that expense, and it's fair to the frontline workers. And so I don't think we're micromanaging them. I think we're just trying to be fair and equitable. And our recommendation is to get some sort of certification. We're not going to go out and audit them spending this money, but we deal with honorable people, and I think a certification would be more than enough for them to guide them to use it appropriately.
So what exactly does that mean?
What's that?
I don't understand. Like, they're going to have to set up some type of a retirement account with some provider that runs their, I mean, do they all have a retirement or 401k program?
The reason we gave them a spectrum of opportunities, I'm an employer and I'm an employee, and I assume there may be some level of those with some may not even have retirement. They may have to use other benefits. But if you have a retirement as 401k, maybe for a period, maybe they would reduce the employee's contribution to account for that. If you have an employee and you want to use your health insurance, they might be able to reduce the employee's percent of their health contributions or some other program. The dilemma is all of them, we don't know exactly what their circumstances are, but everybody has personnel benefits, and they would have to give us some verification that they're going to use that money in that direction.
And the point is, in the past, they have not had to do that, so we don't know how they're spending the money that's allocated to them for that purpose. So now they have to prove to us, which they need to do. Trust but verify is a good way to put it. Reagan used to put it all the time.
Verify but trust.
Well, verify but trust is even better. that they're gonna do it the way we're allocating them to do it now, and the way the other 56% of people have to do it.
Because
there's 44% of people.
I like the fact that we're asking them to show us that they're actually doing something for these employees, because that is who we are trying to make sure is the end result. To
I know,
this.
and it's 44% of the people that are not in the retirement system. That's right. So it's a huge number. So
What's the total, give me again the total number on this,
Employees,
the total number of the costs.
it's 2.9 for retirement and another 90,000 for insurance, so right around 3 million.
And we got 900,000, so it's actually costing us too, right?
900,000 plus the insurance money.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So this,
Employer versus employee. I have an option as an employee whether I want to accept the, go into the retirement piece or not. Am I correct?
As a private provider? Or
No, just as an employee. You my employer. I can either accept or reject going into the retirement system. Am I correct?
For the state, if you're offering state retirement, you're in the system, you can get in the defined benefits where you get a percentage, or you can get into a 401k equivalent.
Okay.
But either way, the employer pays the contribution.
Okay, so in other words, I have no option as to saying I don't want to be in the retirement system. I imagine that's
You
my
want to
question.
contribute in your 401k.
Okay.
And so they won't take any money out for that.
Okay. So when you reached out to folks that you asked to look at it from an employer perspective, how did they feel?
Give us the money. We have a lot of
No,
expenses.
not from that perspective. I'm talking about the 1%. All of them felt pretty much the same way.
It was just so complex, they looked like the best alternative to allocate it. The issue that we're talking about now is how do you make the 44%? If you guide them to do it, what are they going to do? And I think the answer to that is each one may have different degrees of benefits, may have different ways to do it, what's simpler for them. I think if we want to make that guidance as appropriate, how they implement it, I don't think we can understand their business well enough, and how we verify it. That would have to be probably more on the fact, get them to sign a verification that they did it. I don't think we're going to spend audit resources to track down if they do it or not.
Like simple certification form, tell me, can you explain that as versus a contract with us, that they would do it?
How did you use the funds?
Okay, so, but basically, okay, so they would have a contract up front that says you must use these funds for this, correct?
I think whenever you do something like this, you have to weigh the administrative burden. For us to hand them a contract, to sign a contract, that's always an option. I would just think in today's operations that given the industry we're in and the people that are in it, if they give us a certification that I took these funds and I reduced this or I added that, should be enough assurances for us to accept that the money was going that way.
Right, and then if they didn't, we have something in writing saying they did, so the employee needs to come back to them and say, where's my?
And that's the beauty of the fee-for-service system. The fee-for-service system is, here's the rate, manage to the rate, and I think we're trying to move in that direction, so tying it up with a lot of technical stuff, and if I didn't feel like our system was a pretty high integrity group of people, we might consider that, but I think for this purposes, a certification of what they did should suffice in meeting our due diligence.
So I apologize for having asked this question because I'm not exactly understanding. The case managers have a rate for fee-for-service just like everybody else does right now.
They do. They are fee-for-service.
Right, they are fee-for-service. So why did we say that we're under some obligation to them in addition to everybody, outside of everybody else? Because this retirement should be in their rate as well. Why are we saying it's not? Or are we saying it's not?
I think to follow the intent of the legislation, they gave us the overarching give 2.5% COLA to all your healthcare network, and basically as case managers, early interventionists, day programs, and residential are the people that we qualify into the system. They're the people that we consider our network. Case managers are part of our network. The legislation says get them 2.5%. The fact that it's awkward as all get out is really not the issue. I think we have to get to the finish line and give them the COLA as well as give them the retirement piece.
Response number one.
So every year, we're gonna give them a retirement piece, we're not gonna give anybody else because it's in everybody else's rate but theirs, is what you're saying?
Until we get it in the rate, that's our requirement.
But it could be 5 years before they adjust these rates again.
I don't know what the exact time that they're gonna renew the rate. All I can tell you is, in order for somebody to meet the requirement of the appropriation is, give them the 1%, and you will find in the case management network, I may have 56% of them in state retirement. I may have 44% not in state retirement. So I would like to get it in the Medicaid rate. But if I walk over to Medicaid and say, hey, 56% of our people have an appropriation that raised their costs, well, that's pretty justification. But by the way, I got 44%, I'm just going to give it to them. I don't think Medicaid would be, maybe that's an appropriate thing. We got to give them, this is our situation, this is what we own. Sooner or later, there's going to be a rate change. And at that time, we have to make sure that this employee-related cost that we're talking about right now gets incorporated into some future rate.
But it is for everybody else other than case management and day programs, is that what you're saying? Because we just got through saying it was in the rate. It is in their new rate as of.
No, it's not. Because what's going to be refreshed on January 1st of 22 are 13 IDRD waiver rates that they looked at. Over here, the case management rate has been in existence since 2019. And we have a duty to give them a percent. And it is a new percent. It is not in that percent. Trust me, I understand why you're looking that way, but I'm here to tell you, hear me now, believe me later, it's an appropriation of requirement that we have to do it. And if we don't do it, now we have to defend why we didn't do it.
So we have to decide today, correct?
You do not have to. You don't have to. I recommend it.
Okay. When did, this was given to us or told to us by the General Assembly in what, June or July?
Early July.
Okay.
On September 9th or 10th, we got the funding from the Executive Budget Office to make this determination. And so from there, we did our.
So we currently have the money.
We have.
In our system.
We have all the money they're going to give us.
In our bank, basically, or whatever.
Yeah, it's part of all the money we claim to have all the time.
So, why have we held on to it till October? I'm just curious, like what's been the reason why we're looking at this today and we weren't looking at this 3 months ago when we got the money?
Well, we got the money, then we had to make the determinations on the best way to implement it.
Right.
And then you had to write that up, and then you had to wait for the next Finance Committee meeting,
Okay.
which was just on Monday, and now we're having the next commission meeting.
Pat, on response number one, the Milliman analysis, did that person get back to you because they said they didn't have a chance to look at it then? Have they been back in touch with you and said, I looked at it and?
No.
Anything else? All right, what is the pleasure of the commission, motion wise?
Before you do that, I just need to know would that change your opinion because he or she didn't get back to you?
No, not.
Based on?
11 people had an opportunity to provide input, 5 of them did. I looked at the input, there was not a better alternative to deal with this complex situation, and so I took the best alternative of those available.
Okay. All right, we have a recommendation from staff, or from Pat. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I move that we accept the recommendations 1 through 4 as presented in the document for us today.
Okay, is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, the ayes carry, and that is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we are just excited to have Dr. Fry with us, and she's going to give us her first director's update.
Sure. I'll be brief, so I'll stay seated as we are on the lunch hour. I just want to thank the commission and everyone at DDSN for the warm welcome I have received. As you all know, you have a hardworking, mission-oriented team at DDSN. My first almost 2 weeks have been busy. I've had the opportunity to go to the Witten Center, and I thank them for their time that day. They spent several hours and showed me granular aspects of what they do in their work to make sure that those we serve receive high-quality services. I'm looking forward to the next week's getting even busier, continuing to meet with staff, providers, other agencies, and making my way to other centers. The main update that has come up today that I think is relevant to say is yesterday we met with Director Kerr at HHS, and we are going to start a regular cadence of meetings as we move forward to implementing FFS. And we are going to make sure that we are lockstep with them in the way that we, as Pat mentioned, there are a couple of pieces that I know that the provider networks are awaiting information on. We want to make sure that we're aligned with them and within our authority on everything that we do, and that we give accurate, reliable information to the network, and that we're communicating consistently as HHS. So we're looking forward to moving forward on that, as well as waiver implementation. And thank you again for the time.
Thank you. Well, is there any questions for the new director?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
the next cup of coffee is on Rufus.
Rufus. We've given Rufus everything else to do today, so we'll just.
I wanted to hit him one more time.
Throw it a little bit on Rufus. Do I have a second to that motion? Okay, well, our next DDSN meeting will be on the 18th of November here at our regular location at 10 a.m. We will open the doors once again to our guests if they would like to join us here in the room. Thankfully, COVID has seemed to have gone down a little bit and the threat is reduced. So and obviously if you still want to attend, we will offer, and don't want to be in the room with all these folks, you're all welcome to sit down in our conference room downstairs or join us online. Is there any further business that needs to come before this commission before I call for an adjournment?
Could we recommend that those that come for public comment come here now, since
Yes.
they're able to do that?
Yes, please.
That's much easier.
It would be much easier if you do have public comment, if you came and gave it to us here in our conference room. It's very, very hard for us to do it on the phone and really get the full effect of what you need. I encourage you, if you have events in your area, that you let your commissioners know, and hopefully the ones that are living in your area will be able to attend along with Director Fry. I know you've got an event coming up in Charleston for a provider that's opening. That's great. I think that's on the 30th. What is the name of New Autism Center down in Charleston? Yeah. Mount Pleasant, is it?
It's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's opening. So that'll be a big event coming up for us. And like I said, if you hear anything else about Miracle Park, I know that she would love to come up and visit with that as well. So please invite her. If you are a commissioner and have not had the time to sit down with the director and have a one-on-one meeting, please take the time to do that. Or if you are an executive director and would like to have a one-on-one meeting with our new executive director, I encourage you to do that as well. Again, thank you all for coming. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We will stand adjourned.